Hello everyone, it is a strategy gamer back once again with another video. Today we are going to be covering one of the most important topics with regards to heart firing and winning campaigns, and that is your Air Force. Um, I will just preface this with I am on the side of planes win wars, and I am just 100% no change in my mind. I've played a lot of campaigns, and planes wins wars. So let's talk about the type of planes, what they do, strategies with them, research, doctrines, and all that good stuff. So, fundamentals. We got over here what I would consider light planes, and over here heavy planes, and over here you can ignore. Some people like scout planes. I've never used them, and I probably never will. So we'll start with the big one, fighters. Fighters are really important. So they're, as the description says, they're fast and nimble and do a lot of jobs. They can protect bombers, intercept enemy bombers, but the big one is air superiority. And what is air superiority? Essentially, it says that over a certain an air region, which is always determined like this. You can take a look. It's divided into somewhat large areas, but not overly large either. It's relatively manageable with early planes, but you have at least 60% superiority over a region. That just means that you're winning the air fight there. And being able to win the air fight and have air superiority actually gives your army a lot of bonuses, and gives enemies debuffs. And the enemy debuffs are like reductions to defense, reduction to breakthrough, reduction to movement, reduction to org. I think of org like rebuild. But having that air superiority also gives you the opportunity to use other planes to do things. For example, let's say you want to use close air support. And close air support is essentially used for two main things. And I'll pull up the planes right here. Let's see, it's these guys. So they can actually do technically four, but there's two they're really good at. Close air support, which is bombing enemy divisions during battle, and that's a very key thing to know. I could be at war with Poland, but if we're not actually fighting and I have these guys doing this, they're actually not going to do anything. And so you really want to have, you need to have actual on-ground battles happening in this area for these planes to do anything. They also are great for logistical strikes. Now, you don't need battle for this. This will just happen gradually over time. And logistical strikes are essentially, hey, we're going to bomb trains, trucks, and make it harder for the enemy to get supply to the front. And that is really helpful for a war of attrition, specifically, especially when the front lines have calmed down. And close air support is just incredible for attritional warfare because it not only affects enemy organization, which again is their ability to fight, but their strength, which tells you how strong they are in the fight. And it directly attacks strength. So especially when fighting like tank divisions, wow, they just melt tank divisions unlike anything else. It is, especially in a slow grinding battle with tanks, something that lasts 3-4 weeks. They're going to lose a lot of equipment from close air support. And so maintaining air superiority with close air support is a wonderful way to wear down your enemy. Then we have naval bombers. Naval bombers are great, especially their aircraft carrier version, because they sink enemy ships and they can bomb enemy ports. For the most part, sinking enemy ships is easier than bombing enemy ports. So they basically do naval strike, which you put over here, and you'll just, if a ship comes in there and you can spot it, your planes will be sent down. Hopefully they'll sink something. Or they can do port strikes. And port strikes are navies that are sitting in port like these ships here, and they will try to bomb those ships. It's a little bit less effective in my experience, but it's a wonderful way. So if you're like, you're Germany and you have conquered the lowlands of Europe, and you're trying to set up your invasion for England, and you know that they have a good navy here, pretty sizable navy here, and another navy there, you put a bunch of your planes on port strikes and they will start getting damaged, and they actually may even pull them out of the area, and that can allow you to get naval superiority. And naval superiority is what you need for naval invasions. And so using those those planes to destroy enemy navies is a wonderful way to go, and their cost is just so much less than an actual navy. Next, we got heavy fighters. And heavy fighters are just larger fighters. They're a bit heavier. They cost a bit more. But they provide additional air superiority. You'll notice how this is a 1. And this is a 1.25. They have longer range. They're better at shooting down enemy bombers. And overall are just like a better fighter, but they're more expensive. And in my experience, as much as I love great planes, quantity over quality almost always wins the day. And so being able to outproduce your enemy is incredibly important. All right, then let's talk about strategic bombers. We'll talk about tactical bombers in a sec. Strategic bombers are specific to bombing enemy, not just factories, but enemy logistics, enemy AA, enemy bases, enemy forts, enemy anything you can think of that you have to build in this game that's not like directly from the production tab, but anything construction-wise can be destroyed and bombed by strategic bombers. In general, though, you need a lot of them, and by a lot, I mean even 100 over one location will not do a whole lot of damage. It'll be like, pinpricks over time, essentially, right? And so getting a lot of these out, especially when you're the allies, is a great way to wear down your enemy before attacking them, or wearing them down as you fight them so that they're weaker as the war goes on. But you need a lot of them. Having like 50 or 100 really does not make a difference. And then finally, we got tactical bombers. And these you can think of as a hybrid between close air support and strategic bombers. If you click on them, you'll notice they can do close air support. They can also do strategic bombing. They can also do naval strikes, port strikes, and logistical strikes. These are an all-encompassing plane, but they're worse than strategic bombers at strategic bombing. They're worse than close air support at close air support. And they're worse than naval bombers at port strikes and naval strikes. That being said, they have wonderful range, and if you're fighting somewhere not Europe, like let's say you're fighting the Far East, you're Japan fighting America. I think that America and China. I think that with Japan, those tactical bombers are pretty important because let's say you're trying to invade Hawaii, unless you have this Johnson Atoll right there, even then your close air support might not be able to reach it, but for a fact that your tactical bombers will. And so tactical bombers are long range, do anything you want, just understand it's at a lower efficiency and does less overall than the individual planes that were designed for that. But theoretically, if you play your cards right, you could save a lot of production costs and value by just producing tactical bombers and fighters and trusting it to do what you need to do and improving that. How do you improve it, though? Well, let's talk about doctrines again. I love doctrines. All right, so there's 3 main doctrines. Strategic destruction. That is bombing. So you get some pretty big bonuses down this tree. Like, for example, you get 30% bombing overall with just that one alone, or you can have a reduced nighttime penalty and then a slight 20% bonus to bomber formations, or you can get better escort efficiency. Overall, this is the strategic bomber thing, and they just make strategic bombers better. Then we have battlefield support. This is where close air support gets its big buffs. You'll notice it's stuff like, air support mission efficiency, ground support, more air support mission efficiency, agility, ground support, and yeah. So this is really good for buffing your close air support, although keep in mind, I would say this is the weakest of the 3 overall. If you're trying to have an all-encompassing Air Force, this is not the one you'd want to go with. Then there's operational integrity, and this is where tactical bombers are going to be used in that flex role, somewhere between bombing enemy cities and bombing the actual enemy army. And this overall just makes tactical bombers better. And I like this tree a lot if I'm not running close air support, because it also gives great bonuses to fighters. And overall just makes your Air Force just so much better. There's also a few national spirits that you can play around with and figure out what you like. This is great for air support. This is great for air superiority. This is great for fighting fighters. This is great for defending your homeland. This is great for, hey, I'm going to take a lot of attrition, but I want to keep my pilot skilled, and pilot skill is important. I'll get into that in a sec. And this is good for kind of a escort and ground attack. Then over here, we have reduce accidents and air doctrine reduction costs, get more air experience, get more training, get more experience from training. This helps you research things faster, close air support, and reduce the cost of advisors. This is a pretty weak area, honestly. Training. So training is important because let's take these guys. They're all fresh, right? They're rookies. So they have reduced air attack and reduced agility, and they perform much worse in the night as a result of that. Having them fully trained up, though, they will get buffs rather than debuffs, and theoretically, as I said, quantity over quality when it comes to planes. But if you have relatively equal air force, someone else, especially fighting over a single air region, that will tip the scales in your favor. But I would still err more on the side of I'd rather have more overall planes than fewer planes but better pilots. And that's just my personal preference, but in my experience, that is how you win the air war. And winning the air war is just so important because as soon as you grind them down and reduce their effectiveness with their planes, yours become more effective as a result, meaning that you can do what you're trying to do with your planes. And so if you're in 1940 and you're getting ready to 1941, you're getting ready to attack the Soviet Union, it's probably good to know what their air force size is. Where are they? How many are there, and how quickly are they producing them? So you know where your air force needs to be. In general, when producing them, I will put half of all my factories that I'll be using for air force on fighters alone. And that is just to make sure I have air superiority everywhere I want my other specialized planes. And so if I have a total of 20 factories I'll dedicate to planes, whenever that may be, I will put 10 alone on fighters. And then depending on what I'm doing, if I'm running close air support, maybe I'll put 10 more, the other 10 on close air support. If I want close air support and strategic bombers, I'll probably do something like probably like 6 and 4. But overall, fighters, you have to make sure that you have enough fighters to support your close air support so they can do what they need to do. If you are using close air support without fighters against enemy fighters, all you're going to do is see no damage done by your close air support, and you're going to watch the number of planes you have drop quickly. And so that's really covers everything basic about the Air Force. There's a lot of little tips and tricks you will pick up when you play. I encourage you to check into my Let's Play series once I start that. I'll be walking everyone through, what I think is the best things to do with X, Y, and Z, and planes will be one of those X's. But yeah, so planes, important. They win wars. They win battles. They win campaigns. And so do not neglect your Air Force. I won't put the majority of my factories on Air Force, but I will dedicate a third of my industry to it. Yeah, I think a third is a pretty good round number for it. Another third going to infantry equipment and supporting my infantry, and then the last third maybe towards tanks and trucks. Although trucks you can probably cap yourself at 5 factories unless you're going for an absolutely large motorized army. But yeah, so seriously though, I cannot stress this enough. Air Force wins war. A weaker army can beat a larger army if they have a better Air Force. And I mean a really good Air Force. Especially when fighting defensively, because it's so much harder to push someone back. If you're attacking, of course you need an Air Force. You just absolutely do. Do not attack without an Air Force. And yeah, that should really cover this video. A little bit shorter today, but I think that covers all the basics I really wanted to Oh, yeah, I did forget one thing. Under production tab, you can create variants. And variants are important because they can make your planes better. Again, this is a quality versus quantity thing, but these don't impact the production costs and only very slightly reduce the efficiency, and so I think it's worth doing it. With fighters, I immediately buff engine up to 5. It does not affect reliability. It does not affect range. All it does is gives them more max speed and more agility, and agility is their ability to hit another plane and avoid being hit. The second thing I'll upgrade is 1-for-1 with the range and reliability, because you'll notice when the range goes up, reliability goes down. But nothing else is impacted. So if I can max out these 3 things, this is the best possible plane I can get for fighters. With close air support, it's a little bit more mixed up. So I can, of course, upgrade the engine, and that's great. It will essentially avoid them from being hit as often. But then you have a question for yourself, because you'll notice with attacking, you actually do reduce your agility. And you reduce your reliability, but their primary function is a lot better. So you have to figure out what you want to do with it. I personally, if I'm winning the air war, I'll max these out like this. Boom. And then I'll notice the agility is down. So, if I have enough later on in the game, yeah, I'll improve that. No problem. But I would, if I'm winning the air war, I would buff their ground attack values as much as possible. And that's just to make them better overall. With strategic bombers, I once again would max out your strategic bombing value, increase that reliability, and then if you have the ability to, you have enough experience, buff that engine. You'll notice it actually does impact the range when you do use bombing, and so maybe you, instead of doing engine, you go with the range. And then, unfortunately, though, that does affect the reliability, so you have to cut these back a bit. And so you'll have to play around with what you like and what you try and get out of it. But I'm a big believer in you should max what planes are good at. And then if you're struggling with range, there's 2 ways to address that. 1, build more air bases. Or 2, increase the range on the planes. And you'll have to figure out as your campaign unfolds what you think is a better approach. And what you think is what your army and what your country needs to win that war. All right, that should cover it for today, guys. Leave a comment and a like if you enjoyed the video, and I will see you in the next one.